Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the November 2nd, 2016 meeting of the Frederick County Planning Commission. And I'm asking if we can join together in a moment of silence. Thank you. We have no changes to the agenda.
Move for
To approve.
adoption.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have, I don't believe, any committee reports. Our Transportation Committee member is out of town, and that's the group that met. I would like to welcome Steve Slaughter. He is chairman of the Winchester Planning Commission. We're delighted you're here. Do you have a report for us, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A very brief report. We have a light agenda. We have several conditional use permits, and we have one preliminary subdivision approval at our next meeting, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Mr. Blaine Dunn from the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At the last meeting, the board approved a couple of items that had previously been before this group. That included the conditional use permit 1116 for Jessica Howard, which was dealing with a situation, a home daycare in Stevens City, a rezoning for the Miller Hardware store that was approved by the board. The board also approved a pump and haul application and a resolution for funding for the Jubal Early Drive and Tebbe Street extension, as well as a right-of-way for the family of a subdivision which included a 50-foot extension being put to a 20-foot extension.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. This is the spot on our agenda that any citizens who want to make mention of something they'd like for us to hear can come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the commission.
Yes.
Patrick Sowers, 138 Atlantis Lane, in Peckham District. Actually here, I know the next item on your agenda is the information item for the comp plan revision. First, I just wanted to recognize that I know staff has put in a lot of effort into that, and the Planning Commission subcommittee. There's been a lot of effort into that, going into that, so just want to recognize that first. That being said, Ralph Gregory, who owns the property just north of Stevens City, which is part of the Kernstown area plan, it's the Apple Land Rec Center, asked me to stop by tonight just to raise one concern that's come up last minute. That being the Kernstown area plan as proposed would designate the Apple Land property, which is currently zoned RA and designated for RA land. It would designate that for future commercial uses, but it does not expand the SWAZA to enable a rezoning for commercial uses. Mr. Gregory would like to have the ability to seek a rezoning possibly in the future, even possibly to have the flexibility to maybe be commercial or industrial, being that it's adjoining the railroad tracks. But as it's proposed, it would not enable that. And there's actually an unintended consequence of designating lands outside of the SWAZA for future commercial. And that is, as an RA property currently, it's eligible to be ascending property for a transfer development rights program. But once it's designated as commercial, it is no longer allowed to be ascending property. So you end up in this middle ground of you can't use it for TDRs, but you also can't seek a rezoning because it's not in the SWAZA. So Mr. Gregory just asked that I stop by and just present that concern to you.
Right. We're
Thank you very much.
We're glad you did. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, it's time that we got on with the information discussion item, and Mrs. Perkins is going to take us through the comp plan update.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. As you stated, this presentation is for the 2035 Comprehensive Plan Update. This has really been a lengthy process, and we're finally here for the discussion of this plan. It really started back in 2015, extended through 2016, through a number of avenues for this 5-year update. We did a lot of web-based outreach to solicit comments. There were stakeholder and committee reviews, staff, outside editor reviews. We had a number of public meetings for the plan back over the summer in June. It was presented to you at your Planning Commission Board of Supervisors retreat back in August of this summer. And following that, we had some additional board input and staff editing to really revise the text and reduce some of the length of the text in the main document. So just the main components of this plan, there's really 3 sections. There's the draft document, the 2035 Comprehensive Plan, which is your main document, and then as part of that are Appendix 1, which is your area plan. I would note that the Kernstown area plan update is included in the Appendix 1. And then you have the Appendix 2, which is your background and analysis and supporting studies. I would note that in your agenda tonight, you only have the draft 2035 plan, because that's really the main document that's been edited. You've seen Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 on a number of occasions, and they haven't changed. So really, it would just been a lot more reading material that hadn't been changed. So that's why we only included the main plan and the Kernstown area plan and maps. So what's changed with this plan? There's updated demographics and statistical data. We've updated the maps and the tables. There's some text revisions and simplifications of the terms, some changes to the focus to the future, as well as goals and strategies throughout the plan. There's some expanded business and economic development text. Within the public facilities, there's an addition of the sanitation authority section. And then, as I stated, there's really an overall reduction in the size of the text in the main document. So these 2 maps on the screen to your left are really just 2 of the main components, the main maps. On the left, we have the Eastern Frederick County Long Range Land Use Plan. Now, what this is a compilation of really all of your small area land use plans put into one big document. And then your Eastern Frederick County Road Plan, which has all of the transportation improvements. Now, just kind of pulling out on the Kernstown area plan with Appendix 1, what we've done is some simplification of that text, really just to edit it down and compress it. We've updated the map for the SWAZA expansion. I would note that expansion is really just to bump the sewer water service area around some previously designated industrial land. And then some DSA sensitive natural areas adjustments, as well as land use adjustments. So this is the Kernstown area map. On the left, you have what is currently within the comprehensive plan. Oops, and then scroll too fast. On the right is the area proposed for adoption, and this is included in the agenda in appendix, which would be Appendix 1. So really kind of where this has been recently, the CPPC discussed this at their October 2016 meeting, and they endorsed the text to come forward to the Planning Commission. So tonight, with this discussion, we are seeking endorsement of the plan from the Planning Commission. It'll be forwarded to the board. I would note that we are currently waiting on comments from VDOT on the transportation chapter, which is a 527 review. It's a state code requirement. Once we get those edits, we do have to do some modifications to the document. It'll go back to the Transportation Committee and submit it back to VDOT. And we are planning, once we get those edits made, we'll bring that chapter specifically back to the Planning Commission just for a brief update of what has changed within the transportation chapter. And from there, we're proposing a December 14th Board of Supervisors discussion, and then future plan, January 2017 Planning Commission and Board public hearings. So that's really a summary of where we're at, where we've been with the plan. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have on this document.
How can the commissioners help you? How can we help you? We've been at this thing for so long, you and Tyler both.
If they have any comments, questions about it, tonight we're really seeking your endorsement of this plan so that we can get it rolling to its next steps and ultimately adoption beginning of the year.
Not to drag it out, but could you give a 2-minute summary of the changes and the impact to people from the changes from the old to the new comp plan? Is there any unintended consequences of what we did, such as the Gregory property or anything else?
Are you specifically just talking the Kernstown area plan or the overall document? So I said the overall document, the plan,
Yeah.
the main document, it hasn't been edited significantly. A lot of the stuff that we've done, 'cause this is just an update, so we've went back through a lot of the chapters. reduced the text. Some of the chapters were redundant. Some of the stuff was repeating strategic plans from other agencies. So we struck that because we didn't want to have, duplicate text that was enforced by another agency. So really, after it was kind of edited by the Blue Ribbon groups, we went back through it, pared it down a little bit, so it was a little more streamlined, easier to read. But overall, the content of that plan really didn't change.
So in summary, you didn't really,
No.
you changed it, but you didn't change the
The
substance.
Correct. So that's the actual document. As far as the Kernstown area plan, the area that was discussed is this area here. If we look on the current land use plan, as you can see, the SWAZA boundary is the same on that plan with the exception of the adjustment of this piece here, which was previously designated industrial. As you can see, the land use plan had all of these areas here remaining rural. So through the Kernstown area studies and the public input meetings and, that we had a number of those, this was the land uses that resulted from that were, like I said, bumping out just the SWAZA around the industrial area and then designating the area that was previously designated as RA, showing it as a commercial. However, the SWAZA wasn't expanded around that area. So it would be a future, land use, what it would be in the future at some point if the SWAZA were expanded, if the applicant came in at a later time for a comp plan amendment when that area was ready to develop. So that's really the gist behind the Kernstown area plan. So,
Yes.
Do we have a lot of areas where we've expanded, we show commercial areas, future commercial areas, but don't have sewer and water service area in those areas?
yes, there's a number of small area plans that do have that. The 522 area, the Stevens City Triangle area, all of those areas have land uses that are preserving, we'll say, future industrial areas. However, they don't currently have either capacity, infrastructure in place to serve them. But we've designated it, that's what it's meant to be in the future, but it's not ready at this time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So you read it from cover to cover, I know. It seems to me, and I'm just going to say plain out, I think it looks terrific. It acts terrific. It reads very well, and the two of you have done a super job in getting us to where we are. I don't have any comments on the content. I feel like I've read it over and over, and I appreciate having been able to do that. But did anybody see anything they thought was not Frederick County in here, or that read peculiarly, or did it make sense? Does it feel like this is our comp plan for the next 5 years?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to back up a little bit of what you said. If you read the draft and look at all the red print and red marks, these folks have done a tremendous amount of work on this thing and have taken a tremendous amount of verbiage out of here and made it so much simpler. I think they're to be complimented. 'Cause I know this is something that didn't happen overnight.
That was a long edit.
Several nights. Oh, dear. Anybody else? What would you like to tell the Board of Supervisors about it? About time? Anything else? And how about Kernstown? Kernstown plan? Okay, okay. Well, I do believe we are done, heaven's sakes. And this will go to the Board of Supervisors on the 14th of December. Okay, we have, as you saw, an addition to our agenda, and that's dealing with the bylaws. And Mike, would you like to join me, or can we?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, if we could do one thing first, the one item on the agenda are the minutes. If it would be appropriate for the Planning Commission to deal with that before we get to the other item, that would be great. We need to approve the minutes from the October 6th meeting.
You know, my friend told me I hadn't done that, so let's go ahead and with the minutes.
Move for approval of the October 5th minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. All righty. Okay, Mike and I took a look at, no, let's back up. We have to have our bylaws approved for the beginning of next year. And we, when Mike and I said, how do we do this? Well, the one thing we need is your input. So as we are speaking about what's in here, and we're not going to be speaking very long, just areas that we may want to consider changing, we're going to also ask you all to go ahead and prepare for us any changes or any insertions or anything that you all think that we should pay attention to. But let's see, these were the January 6th, and the items that Mike and I talked about were really under the procedures, under 8.3. So that gets us on page 6, okay? And the first thing that we'll say is that the parliamentary procedure in the commission meeting shall be governed by Robert's Rules of Order, except where otherwise specified. In other words, if we change them. And so we just want to remember that that's where we are. The item, I think, that would make some sense to us, and we've spoken a little bit with Rod and I think Roger T., and I can't figure out who else, but we've had a bouncy experience with tabling. And tabling has been for us, I guess, a feeling of not being able to communicate. And so if you take a look at what Robert's rules suggests, then what we're doing is really not correct. Okay? But we could say we changed it. Well, I'm not sure whether we intentionally did it. But we do have the opportunity to take one word, and that is table, and replace it with postpone. So that, in other words, we will be essentially doing the same thing with the criteria that we're gathering together. Everything under tabling will go under postponements. And so in that case, it affords us the opportunity to take an item and suggest that we want to see it again. And we're going to probably use the 45 days, although it's up to you all to figure out whether you think this is a good thing or not. And so all the items under tabling would move over to postponement, and the same criteria would go with them. Another thing while we're on this page is that, if you'll recall, Eric, some time ago, discussed revising the item about proffers not having been received within a period of time, and we took it down to 14. And the reason that we did all that was what electronically can be used by both the applicant and by staff, and hence the Planning Commission. So one of the things we may want to think about is to potentially take that 14 days down further to 7 days. If we could take that 7 days. Mr. Chuck?
Madam Chairman, this was one of the changes we discussed last fall, about last year, about this time, and if I recall, we elected to keep the 14 days.
I know we did.
And one of the reasons for bringing it up is today, with with the ability for electronic transfer of information and so forth, a lot of information can be disseminated a lot more quickly.
Yes.
So I think we talked about shortening that time frame last year, but I think we ended up leaving it at 14 days. So I think probably shortening that might help.
Would anybody have difficulty with that?
Well, and I think we ought to be specific, too, on that. That 14 days is that it's received by the planning department or the planning commissioners. So the applicant, it just says received 14 days before the advertised date. So I think we need to be specific that it's received by the planning department X days, whether it's 10 days, and I think the 14 days can be shortened. I agree with you there. But I think we ought to be maybe just a little bit more specific on who receives it. So we don't end up with somebody talked to a planning commissioner and thought they gave it to them or, gave it to the wrong person, so.
So,
I believe that's a fair way to do it. Of course, we would receive it on behalf of the planning commission or any planning commissioners, so that would be very helpful. I think another approach when we're dealing with a time frame issue, in this case 14 days before or 5 days before or 7 days to the planning commission or commissioners or planning staff is appropriate. We've also had a discussion about if we table it for a certain amount of days, sometimes that doesn't actually hit on a particular meeting. So an additional item may be that if we say for 45 days that it is postponed, should I say, rather than tabled, or the next available meeting thereafter.
Something
To give
thereafter.
us some more flexibility, even if the calendar is not quite right for an exact day. So those two clarifications, I think, would be helpful.
Well, should we put calendar days in there so that there's no question that it's calendar days, not work days?
With regards to the 14?
Well-
7?
The whole way through the document. I guess there's a couple other places we mentioned days. Should we say calendar days? Think
Yes,
back on-
that's a good clarification, because of course that's the intent
Yeah.
at this point.
Well, there's a couple places where we say 5 days, and with the meeting being on Wednesday, that would be a Saturday. So I don't know if we want calendar days or work days.
well, that sounds like work days. Is it?
So
Mike and I talked about it, 5 days is what we distribute by Friday before the meeting. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Wednesday, 6 days.
No,
How you count it.
I think
Well-
these are good suggestions, and it's in essence what we're looking to get from the commission over the next couple of weeks. And by providing you the hard copy here this evening, in addition to, we'll be emailing you out a digital version and a reminder, hopefully, to get any additional comments we have back to us by the 16th. That is our next scheduled planning commission meeting, which we are unlikely to actually have at this point. So we'll be looking to receive any comments in addition to what we have right now, so we can prepare modifications to the bylaws that then can be discussed in more detail at the planning commission.
I will add that the only reason we're talking about these items is that this appeared to just two people, something that we may want to work on. And i.e. the postponement issue and the number of days of the short, the proffers. But if you see anything in there that you really think needs to be looked at, that's what we need to hear by the 16th.
And we will provide you with a reminder. And of course, why we're doing it at this time of the year is in preparation for your first meeting of next year, which will be January the 4th, at which time we want to make sure that the bylaws you adopt are ones that you are very comfortable with.
Everybody okay with this?
Mike,
Yeah.
when you get comments from a individual or something, what's the time frame you get it to when the commissioners get it? I mean, they send you stuff in, how soon is it before we get it?
in the example of a rezoning,
Yeah.
we'll get it to you pretty much right away.
Because what I'm thinking about, it's not the client's problem. If they send it to you on the 5th and you don't get it to us till the 8th, that's not their problem. Our problem, we should decide when it gets to the planning department, more so than when it gets to the commissioners. That's, they don't have anything to do with that. When we're taking into account the amount of days that we should be doing it. But if it gets to us right away, like the next day or something, then, that's pretty good.
And I think, obviously, with our agenda preparation, what we're trying to do is make sure that the Planning Commission as a whole has all of the information at that time. And then so adjustments that come in after that fact are not necessarily part of the package, and not everybody may have the benefit of those. So that's where that time frame is important, to get it back in so you can all get it together in a timely manner.
Well, and that goes back to a little bit what I was getting at, and I didn't follow up on it. If we say it has to be to the planning department in 10 days, that gives, if it's a day or two till it gets to the planning commissioners, how long do we need to look at it? If we want 7 days, we probably need to say 9 or 10 days here so that it gives them a chance gives the planning department a chance to read it, make sure it's in the right format, and get it up electronically and send it to us. So we ought to backward count our days, and if we think 5 days is enough, then add 2 more to it or 3 to it to get to the planning department. So we ought to think about that too.
What I would like to think about is that these are our guidelines, and so we need to have these be commission speak. I mean, Mike's going to worry about how long it takes for him to get something from an applicant, okay? But what we are saying, so that we can expect these things to occur on a predictable basis. Does that make sense to you? So, anyway, you have a little homework, and if you think it's all hunky-dory, that's great. If you'd like, what we're going to do is provide back to you the proposed revisions, and you'll have 30 days to take a look at it, and that'll cover that requirement for us. So, okay, is everybody all right? I think we're at the end of the agenda. And does anybody have anything to add to the good of the cause?
At this point, Madam Chairman, we have no items scheduled for the November 16th meeting.
The second meeting in November will not be held.
That we cancel the November 16th meeting?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okey-doke, thank you. We need to do something about going home.
Move to adjourn, Madam Chairman.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you all very much, and a special thank you truly
Oh,
to
yeah. I mean, history was going to be.
our staff.
When do they want the Commerce Bowl?